Have you ever laid awake at night staring at your phone, just hoping their name would pop up on the screen? That single moment when your heart beats faster, only to realize it's not them. No call, no text, just silence. And the worst part? You know they love you. You feel it. You've seen it in their eyes, in their touch, in the way they looked at you like you were the only one in the room. So then why? Nothing. The truth is, silence from someone you love can hurt even more than words ever could, because silence forces you to fill in the blanks. And when you're in love, your mind becomes a storyteller, writing 1,000 heartbreaking endings that may not even be real. This video is not about cliches or vague advice. It's about truth, unfiltered, honest, painful, maybe, but freeing. We're going to unpack the psychology behind why someone who loves you might still choose to keep their distance, and how it has everything to do with them, and almost nothing to do with you. So if you've ever found yourself asking, why don't they just reach out? Stay right here. By the end of this, you won't just have answers, you'll have clarity, and maybe even peace. When someone you care about suddenly pulls away, it feels personal. It feels like rejection. But in many cases, emotional withdrawal isn't about you at all. It's a protective response wired deep in the brain. People withdraw emotionally for one core reason: it feels safer than staying present, especially for those who've been hurt before. Vulnerability is seen as a threat, not as strength. Opening up, staying connected, risking rejection, these things activate the brain's fear response, the same system designed to keep us safe from danger. What's wild is that emotional withdrawal can happen even when someone is in love. In fact, love can intensify the fear. When emotions run deep, the stakes feel higher. The more they care, the more they fear being hurt. So instead of leaning in, they retreat. They might ghost you, avoid conversations, or go cold, because silence for them feels like control. It's not logical, it's emotional self-preservation. Many people carry unresolved wounds from childhood or past relationships. If they grew up feeling abandoned, judged, or emotionally neglected, their nervous system was trained to expect pain from closeness. So when they start to feel attached in the present, their survival instincts kick in. Pull back, don't get too close, stay safe. You might interpret their silence as not caring, but in reality, it could be a deeply ingrained defense mechanism. There's also shame. Someone might love you deeply but feel unworthy of your love. They might believe they'll eventually disappoint you, or that they're not enough. Instead of risking being found out, they disappear. It's not fair, and it's not healthy, but it's real. Understanding this doesn't excuse their behavior, but it can give you clarity. Their silence isn't always a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their inner battles, ones you can't fight for them. And sometimes, no matter how much love is present, a person has to choose healing before they can choose you. Fear of rejection and fear of vulnerability may look the same on the surface: silence, distance, or pulling away. But at their core, they come from very different places. The fear of rejection says, if I reach out, you might not want me. The fear of vulnerability says, if I show you who I really am, you might stop loving me. Both are powerful, both are deeply rooted, and both can paralyze someone who loves you. For some people, love triggers a fear of being seen too clearly. Vulnerability requires them to drop their guard, to let someone in past the layers of control, perfection, and protection they've built up over years. That's terrifying, especially if they've been judged or hurt before. Vulnerability isn't just about sharing feelings. It's about letting someone see your insecurities, your wounds, your chaos. And the more they care about you, the more they fear losing you if you saw all of that. On the other hand, fear of rejection can make someone stay silent even when they're desperate to connect. It convinces them that they're not good enough, that any attempt to reach out will end in humiliation or abandonment. It whispers, you'll be too much or not enough. So instead of risking rejection, they choose distance because it feels safer to hide than to face the possibility of being unwanted. The heartbreaking truth is that both fears can exist inside someone at the same time. They may long to be close, but feel completely unequipped to handle the risk. They might love you deeply, but love isn't always louder than fear. And when those fears go unhealed, they don't just block connection, they destroy it. This is why someone can care about you, miss you, even think about you every single day and still never reach out, because to do so would mean facing all the things they've been avoiding within themselves. Vulnerability means exposure. Rejection means pain. And for someone who hasn't done the inner work, both feel unbearable. So they stay quiet, not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much and don't know how to deal with it. We grow up believing that if two people love each other, they'll find a way. That love conquers all. That love means effort, commitment, communication. But the harsh truth is, love alone isn't always enough. And realizing that can be one of the most painful lessons we ever learn in relationships. Love is powerful. It's magnetic. It draws people together. But it's not a guarantee. It's not a fix-all. You can love someone with everything you have and still not be able to build a future with them. Why? Because love needs support. It needs maturity, communication, emotional safety, timing, and willingness. Without those things, love can't thrive. It can still exist, yes, but often in silence, in longing, in regret. Sometimes the person who loves you doesn't have the emotional tools to handle love. They haven't healed from their past. They don't know how to be vulnerable, how to communicate, or how to stay when things get hard. Their love may be real, but their fear is bigger, their trauma louder, their self-doubt more convincing than your reassurance. And so they pull away, not because they don't feel anything, but because they don't know what to do with what they feel. And here's where it gets really hard. You might love someone who wants to be with you, but isn't capable of being with you. Not in the way you need, not in the way you deserve. You'll find yourself waiting for change, holding on to potential, replaying the good moments, and hoping they mean more than the silence that followed them. But in doing so, you slowly lose pieces of yourself. The truth is, love requires action. It requires choice. And if someone isn't showing up, no matter how much they say they love you, their silence speaks louder. Because love without effort is just a feeling. Love without communication is confusion. Love without presence becomes pain. Letting go of someone you love is brutal. But holding on to someone who can't or won't meet you where you are is even more damaging. It makes you question your worth. It keeps you in limbo. It feeds your hope while starving your peace. So no, love isn't always enough. It's a foundation, not the whole house. You still need emotional responsibility, shared values, respect, and most of all, consistency. Without those things, even the deepest love will wither. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to stop chasing someone's potential and start choosing your own peace. That's not giving up on love. That's choosing love with yourself first. Sometimes silence isn't rejection. It's not indifference. It's not about you at all. Sometimes silence is a window into the chaos going on inside someone's mind, a sign of deep inner conflict they don't know how to express, let alone resolve. When someone loves you but goes quiet, they may be stuck in a battle between their heart and their fears. They might want to be close, but fear being hurt. They may crave connection, but panic at the thought of vulnerability. So they freeze, they retreat, and they say nothing. Not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much and don't know how to organize it into words. This kind of silence is different. It's not cold or cruel, it's confused. It's the kind of silence that comes with guilt, longing, and a million what-ifs. Deep down, they may be questioning everything. Do I deserve this person? Will I mess this up? What if I get hurt again? They're caught between wanting to move forward and being too afraid of what that future might require of them. People experiencing inner conflict often isolate not because they want to be alone, but because they don't want to burden anyone with the storm inside them. They may think they're protecting you by not dragging you into their emotional mess. Ironically, the silence they use to protect you is often the very thing that hurts you most. Inner conflict also brings shame. Someone might be battling with parts of themselves they don't understand. Old wounds, patterns, fears, insecurity. And when they can't make sense of themselves, they assume you won't be able to either. So they disappear into silence, not because they've stopped caring, but because they care too much and feel incapable of showing it the right way. And yet, as much as that silence might come from a place of inner struggle, it still leaves you on the outside, confused and hurting. You start doubting the connection. You wonder what you did wrong. But the truth is, their silence is often about them not being ready. Not you, not being worthy. Understanding that doesn't make the silence hurt less, but it can help you stop blaming yourself. Not every connection ends because of a lack of love. Sometimes it ends or fades because someone couldn't win the war within themselves. And no matter how much you love them, you can't fight that battle for them. If you're experiencing this, know this: you deserve someone who chooses clarity over confusion, openness over retreat, and communication over silence. Inner conflict is real, and we can have compassion for it, but we also need to protect our own peace, because love should not feel like you're constantly waiting for someone to be ready. Sometimes their silence is not your cue to chase, but your sign to let go and let them figure it out on their own. When someone pulls away or goes silent, it's natural to wonder if they're secretly hoping you'll be the one to break the silence. The truth is, sometimes they are. Sometimes the person who stopped contacting you is waiting on the other side of the silence, hoping you'll be the one to reach out first. Not because they don't care, not because they've moved on, but because their pride, fear, or confusion is louder than their love in that moment. People don't always pull away because they've lost interest. Often, they pull away to protect themselves. They may feel vulnerable, rejected, or unsure where they stand with you. They might be terrified that if they reach out and you don't respond the way they hope, it will confirm their worst fear, that they've already lost you. So instead, they do nothing. They wait, quietly, painfully, hoping you'll make the first move, so they don't have to risk rejection. In many cases, silence becomes a silent standoff. Two people missing each other, both waiting for the other to break first. It becomes a quiet test. If they care, they'll message me. But both people are thinking the same thing, and so no one reaches out. The connection lingers in limbo, not because it's dead, but because both hearts are frozen in fear or pride. Sometimes they're waiting because they want reassurance, without having to ask for it. They want proof that you still care, that you're still thinking about them, still willing to fight. And while that might sound romantic on the surface, it can also be emotionally manipulative. Because if someone truly values the connection, why wait in silence when they could speak their truth? It's important to know this. Reaching out should never feel like a test you're forced to pass. If you feel pressure to be the one who always breaks the silence, who always fixes things, that's a pattern worth looking at. Relationships shouldn't feel like emotional chess games. You deserve honesty, not guessing. You deserve effort, not silent expectation. So how do you know if they're waiting for you or if they've truly let go? The truth is, you don't, not for sure. But ask yourself this: has this person made consistent effort in the past? Do they communicate clearly when things are difficult? Have they shown emotional maturity? Or do they often leave me feeling confused? Because someone who values you won't leave you wondering for long. They'll find the courage to speak even if it's imperfect. If your gut is telling you they're waiting on you, you can choose to reach out once. But after that, their response or their continued silence will give you everything you need to know. Don't chase someone who leaves you in emotional limbo. If they're waiting, let them wait until they're ready to show up with clarity, not just long. Sometimes it's not a lack of love that keeps someone from reaching out. It's their pride, their ego, and the weight of their unhealed wounds. These aren't always obvious. They don't show up in loud arguments or dramatic exits. Often they show up in silence, in distance, in the refusal to be the first to break. Pride tells them, if they really cared, they'd be the one to text me. Ego adds, I'm not going to lower myself or look desperate. And past wounds whisper, remember what happened last time you got too close. Together these voices form a wall, one that love alone can't break through. People who carry old emotional wounds often use pride as a shield. It's easier to act like they don't care than to admit they're hurting. It's safer to pretend they're fine than to expose their raw, unmet needs. So they stay silent, not because they've moved on, but because admitting vulnerability feels too dangerous. They'd rather suffer quietly than risk rejection, embarrassment, or the feeling of being emotionally dependent. Ego can be especially deceptive. It disguises itself as confidence but is really insecurity in a different outfit. Ego doesn't want to admit fault, doesn't want to appear weak, and certainly doesn't want to make the first move. It says if they come back, maybe I'll talk, but I won't reach out first. And behind that ego is often a deep fear of being judged, of looking too emotional, or of repeating a cycle where they once felt powerless. And then there are the past wounds, the childhood abandonment, the betrayals, the unresolved heartbreaks. These wounds don't disappear with time, they linger. And when someone starts to care deeply again, those wounds flare up. The subconscious mind says, don't trust this, don't lean in too far, you'll get hurt again. So they pull away not because of you, but because they haven't yet made peace with what came before you. You may think their silence means they're over you, that they're cold or indifferent, that sometimes the silence is them holding back the urge to break down, to confess they miss you, to admit they're scared of how much they feel. Pride keeps them from saying it. Ego keeps them from showing it. And their past keeps convincing them it's better to protect than to risk. But here's the truth. Love can't grow behind walls. You can't build something real if someone refuses to soften, to open, to heal. If their pride means more to them than your connection, then the silence isn't just about pain. It's a choice. And no matter how much you love them, you can't force someone to confront what they're not ready to face. Not all silence comes from fear, pain, or confusion. Sometimes silence is deliberate, calculated, a test. And while that may sound manipulative, for some people it's their way of measuring how much you care without having to risk anything themselves. When someone goes silent to see if you'll chase them, it's rarely about love. It's about control. They may convince themselves it's harmless, that it's just a way to see where you stand. But the truth is, emotional testing through silence can be deeply damaging. It creates anxiety, self-doubt, and an uneven power dynamic in the relationship. It makes love conditional, based on whether or not you pass an invisible test you never agreed to take. This kind of silence often comes from people who are insecure, but instead of expressing their need for reassurance, they retreat and wait. If they care, they'll reach out. If they really love me, they'll come after me. It's a way of protecting themselves from rejection while placing all the emotional labor on you. You're the one left overthinking every moment, wondering what you did wrong, decoding the meaning behind their silence, while they sit back and wait to be proven right or wrong about your feeling. What makes this especially tricky is that they might not even realize they're testing you. It's often unconscious, learned behavior, a habit formed from past experiences where they felt abandoned, unseen, or emotionally starved. But just because it's unintentional doesn't make it fair. In some cases, this pattern shows up after a minor disagreement or a moment of vulnerability. Instead of working through it, they disappear. They want you to reach out, to chase, to fix what they're too afraid or too proud to address themselves. And the moment you do, they feel validated. Not because the issue is resolved, but because their ego got fed. It becomes a cycle: pull away, get chased, feel reassured, repeat. But here's the danger. The more you respond to this kind of silence, the more you teach them that emotional distance equals attention, that going cold works, and over time, it reinforces toxic dynamics where silence becomes a weapon, not a response. You deserve communication, not gain. Love should feel safe, not like a constant test. If someone needs reassurance, they should be able to ask for it. If they feel uncertain, they should say so. Silence, when used as a tool to provoke you into proving your worth, is emotional immaturity, not romance. So if you sense that someone is going quiet just to see if you'll chase them, ask yourself, is this the kind of love I want to grow in? Or am I just being drawn into a cycle of proving, instead of being appreciated? Healthy relationships don't require you to earn someone's love through silence. They invite you into openness, not confusion. It's the question that keeps you up at night. The one that circles in your mind every time you think of them. Should I move on? Or should I hold on just a little longer? It's not a simple choice. It never is when love is involved. Because love doesn't just switch off. It lingers, it hopes, it imagines all the ways things could still work. If only they'd come back, explain, or try. Holding on feels easier in the beginning. It's fueled by what-ifs and unfinished conversations. You replay the good moments, look for signs, cling to the connection that once felt so real. You wonder if they're just working through something. You imagine them missing you too, feeling the same silence, wanting the same reunion. And that hope can be comforting. It gives your pain a purpose. It makes the wait feel like a choice. But holding on starts to hurt when it becomes waiting without clarity. When days turn into weeks and silence grows louder than the memories. When you realize you've pressed pause on your own healing, your own growth, just in case they come back. That's when holding on starts to cost more than it gives. It robs you of peace. It clouds your judgment. It keeps you emotionally tied to someone who may no longer be choosing you. Moving on doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't erase the love you felt or make it any less valid. Moving on means you choose to stop abandoning yourself for someone who's not showing up. It means you stop waiting for closure from someone who may never give it. It means you choose clarity over confusion, healing over hoping for potential. Here's the truth. If someone loves you and wants to be in your life, they will show you. They won't hide behind silence or let pride stand in the way. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice, a commitment, a series of actions. And if those actions are missing, if you're left doing all the emotional work, then maybe it's time to stop holding on to the idea of what could be and start making space for what will be. You don't have to hate them to let go. You don't need a dramatic ending or a final word. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is quietly release the hope that they'll change and begin choosing yourself instead. You can still love them, but from a distance that no longer costs you your peace. So should you move on or hold on? Ask yourself this: am I holding on to love or to pain disguised as hope? If it's the latter, it might be time to let go. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally realized your heart deserves more than waiting in silence. At the end of the day, it all comes down to this: clarity and closure. Two things that are so simple in concept, yet so complicated to find when someone you love disappears into silence. You want answers, you want to understand why, you want something to hold on to, something that makes the ending make sense. But what happens when that clarity never comes from them? What happens when they won't give you the closure you so deeply crave? Here's the truth: sometimes you have to give it to yourself. Waiting for someone else to bring you closure is like handing them the keys to your healing. It puts your peace in their hands, and they may not even know or care that you're still waiting. You don't need a long message, a perfect goodbye, or a heartfelt explanation to move forward. What you do need is honesty with yourself. Honesty about what happened, what you felt, what you hoped for, and what never came. Clarity often begins with acceptance. Accepting that their silence was an answer, even if it wasn't the one you wanted. Accepting that love isn't always enough to make someone stay, communicate, or grow. And accepting that no matter how much potential you saw in the connection, it takes two people actively choosing each other to make it real. Closure isn't about blaming them or blaming yourself. It's about releasing the need for a different ending. It's about choosing to close the chapter, not because it's easy, but because your heart deserves peace more than it deserves confusion. It's deciding to stop reopening wounds that someone else keeps ignoring. You may never know what they were thinking. You may never understand why they chose silence over honesty, but you can still choose clarity in your own heart. You can say to yourself, they didn't reach out, they didn't try. That doesn't mean I wasn't enough. That means they weren't ready. And that's not mine to fix. Give yourself permission to grieve what you thought it could be. Allow yourself to feel the hurt, but then begin to move through it, not stay stuck in it. Clarity doesn't mean you stop missing them. It means you stop waiting for them to come back and explain. It means you stop holding your breath for answers that may never come. And closure, it's the moment you stop needing them to validate the pain they caused. It's the day you decide to walk forward with your head high, even if your heart still aches a little. It's choosing peace over potential, reality over fantasy, and yourself over someone who couldn't choose you back. You deserve a love that is clear, consistent, and courageous, not one that hides behind silence. So if you're still waiting, maybe it's time to stop. Not because you don't love them, but because you finally love yourself more. So here we are at the end of a conversation that might have touched something deep inside you. Maybe you saw your own story in the silence. Maybe you finally heard the words you've been needing, even if they were hard to accept. The truth is, when someone you care about pulls away without explanation, it leaves a mark. And it's okay to admit that it hurts. It's okay to say you miss them. But what matters now is what you do with that feeling. You have a choice. You can keep waiting in confusion, or you can start walking toward clarity. You can spend your nights overanalyzing their silence, or you can take that energy and pour it back into you. Your healing, your growth, your peace. You deserve to feel chosen, not just missed. You deserve to be loved out loud, not silently tested. And if someone isn't offering that, then maybe their silence is actually creating space for something healthier, something more aligned, something that chooses you fully. Right now, the next step isn't about fixing anything. It's not about sending one last message or trying to decode their behavior. It's about checking in with your own heart and asking, what do I need to heal from this? Maybe that means journaling it out. Maybe it means unfollowing them so you can breathe again. Or maybe it means sitting with the sadness, but refusing to let it define your worth. If this video gave you even a moment of clarity, then let that be your turning point. Let that be the reason you stop chasing people who communicate through silence. Let it be the beginning of choosing yourself fully, unapologetically, and without waiting for someone else's permission. And if you need more guidance, support, or just a reminder that you're not alone in this, subscribe, comment, or share your story below. This is a space for healing, a space where you don't have to guess what love looks like. Because here you'll be reminded the love you give to others is also the love you deserve for yourself. You've made it this far, don't stop now. Your next chapter starts with the decision to move forward, even if it's with a slightly broken heart. You've got